Phoebe's making the argument that just like history is unimportant unless it literally impacts me right now.
The Wager is about a book. It's about a book that a English ship. What's it about, I wonder?
We will literally never know.
All right, here we go.
Let's go beyond the first page. Let's go beyond the first page.
Welcome back, Second Pagers. This is Beyond the First Page podcast with siblings Phoebe, Phil, and Isaac. I'm Phoebe.
I'm Phil.
I'm Isaac.
And this is Club Meeting 34, The Wager by David Grann. And before we get started, as always, I just want to mention that this is a book club style podcast. We meet every other week and we discuss major plot points and spoilers from throughout the book. So if you don't want The Wager to get ruined for you, even though it is a nonfiction book and you can look up the events on Google, we really recommend that you read the book and then come on and listen to the podcast. Also want to remind everybody that if you like this podcast, please follow us on Spotify, Instagram, YouTube, wherever you listen to your podcasts. And if you enjoy the podcast, please give us a 5-star review. And let's jump right into our icebreaker for the day. And I really want to give people a roundup of 2025 and reading so far. So I would like us to share our favorite books of 2025, both the podcast book and then also just any other book that you've read. And so I will go first. My favorite book club book has been The Rage of Dragons by Evan Winter. And my favorite book that I have read so far this year is Air by Sabah Tahir. But it may also be Rage of Dragons. I really enjoyed that book. So that is mine. Phil, over to you.
Yeah, my favorite book of the year was for sure the Dandelion Dynasty series by Kevin Liu. It's high fantasy, and I won't say The Rage of Dragons because it's sort of the same genre, so I'm going to steal Isaac's and say James, which I think was my favorite book of the podcast.
Wow, spoiler alert. Isaac's
No,
was
that's
James,
not mine.
I guess.
I proclaimed.
Oh.
I feel like I had a revelation on this podcast.
Oh, on Playground. Yeah, that's right.
So my favorite
true.
podcast book was Playground for sure. I think it was probably also my favorite book. But just to name an outside podcast one, the War for the Rose Throne series has been awesome. I'm reading the 4th book right now. Check out our TikTok for all my reviews, but it rocks.
Yeah.
Okay, Isaac, I thought you were reading the Court of Rose and Thorns books. And I was like, this is a wild
Isaac's been stuck in Sumter for a while, and it is getting steamy in South Carolina.
Is that a
It's like a
that's
Faye
the Sarah J.
textbook.
Maas. Yeah, that's the...
It's like the 50 Shades of Grey.
Yeah.
You were texting about that in the book club chat, and I was just like, okay, we listen and we don't judge.
I was texting about what?
That series.
Oh.
The series you were liking a lot,
Yeah.
but I thought it was the Court of Rose
no.
and Thorns. Yeah.
War for the Rose Throne.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
really good.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. I'll have to check that one out. Cool. So, yeah, I just wanted to give our listeners a little summary. It's kind of hard to keep track since we are reading so many books, both in the podcast and book club and then outside. And so that's a good summation, of the first quarter, we'll say, of books that we've read. And without further ado, let us get into The Wager in 60 seconds. Or actually, we have truncated it to 15 seconds. Let's see if Isaac
Let's see what Isaac can
deliver.
do.
Okay, Second Pagers. The Wager is about an English ship called the Wager that is part of our armada that leaves on a secret mission from England in the 1740s to go capture a Spanish galleon in the Pacific Ocean. And to get there, they have to sail around the tip of South America, which is called Cape Horn. And it's one of the most perilous waters in the world. And the Wager gets separated and shipwrecked there. Some of the crew survives. Some make it back Brazil and then back to England. Some others make it to Chile and then back to England. and then they stand trial for a court-martial for their actions for getting the ship wrecked and how they behaved on the island once they were stranded.
Yeah.
Yeah, that
Because
was
they
good.
mutinied. Yeah.
They did.
Right. So that's the whole. Did they?
I think it was maybe an alleged mutiny, which is part of the court. Well, the court
trial.
martial was to find out. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So great job, Isaac. Our first rendition of a more laissez-faire. Off the cuff. Not
Your friend
laissez-faire.
Isaac telling you about the book.
Exactly. That's the new name of the segment.
rather than your friend Isaac with dyslexia reading to you about the book.
Yes. No, great. Yeah. So I think we talked about this a couple episodes ago with fire, whether we are doing, you guys by now have hopefully picked up on our new layout for the podcast. And so we're talking about, for nonfiction, we really want to talk about the writing, the topic, and the takeaway or call to action. And I think, well, I'll leave it open. You know, this is a book club with equal rights for all. I'd like to talk about the topic first and foremost, but I could be persuaded to talk about the writing if that's what people want to do.
Yeah, let's talk about the topic. I think you're going to lead hot here. So I'm going to come in. Maybe we can sandwich the negativity with some positivity. So I liked the topic. I thought it was, I definitely wouldn't say this is an important book that everyone needs to read. Would never say that.
Yeah.
I would say this
Good.
is an entertaining story. This is one of life's stories that I think would be super cool just around a backyard barbecue. Like, remember when this happened? And I thought it was just a great story. I'd never heard of this shipwreck. And I think that there are certain things that like people find interesting. I think he alluded to Robinson Crusoe a lot. I think a story about a shipwreck like Lord of the Flies, like people like that sort of story, and this is just one that actually happened. So I liked the topic. I definitely wouldn't think it was important though.
Yeah, I just, like, why read it then? It's not important. I just can't.
That is a horrible
myself-
argument for on a book club.
But
Phoebe.
there's-
Why
reading.
read?
I
Why
mean,
read fiction then?
Yeah, it's all
Because-
just made up.
But there's okay, my example is Deadwake, right? We got annoyed about Deadwake because it's this very minute issue that occurred that ended up leading to America's entrance into World War I. Like, the author was able to tie this ship sinking to America's entrance into World War I, which is extremely relevant
I don't
to
think
this
he
day.
tied anything. That's like
So-
tying the bomb in Hiroshima to the end of World War II. Just like, whoa, these two might be related. Like, no, what do you mean? He didn't tie
All right, fine.
it. It was the
he didn't
cause
tie
of,
it, but it was related.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then, therefore, it is relevant.
But it's
This was irrelevant to literally. I never even heard of the war that this was a part of.
That's why it's cool. And I think you wanted to talk
To me,
about the
no.
topic, but you're talking about the writing. This topic was interesting
No.
because it was written way better than Deadweight.
Yeah, the Lusitania. So he took the Lusitania and made it unimportant. When if you ask anybody about the Lusitania, they
It's
say,
important.
"Oh, it caused World War I," and he was like,
I don't
might not
disagree
have
with
done
you.
it.
I don't disagree with you. Like, I did at the beginning, I was like, okay, they're writing. But you get to the end, you find out that they get court-martialed, which you did not tell this, Isaac, because if you were talking to your friend, you wouldn't give away the ending. So good on you.
Your
But
friend Isaac.
But nothing happens. Phil, you said there was a twist to the end. I'm like, nothing happened.
That
No,
could
I
They
be-
think
didn't they got
that is the
court-martialed.
twist,
Everyone got off
Phoebe.
because the
Phoebe.
Admiralty swept it under the rug. This is not a twist. We know that if the federal government is at stake for looking bad, they're going to simply sweep it under the rug.
Well, and that's his entire point. Like, these people, and I read this book last year, and in my Goodreads review, I said 4 stars
Check out Phil's Goodread.
because it at the end, he brings in this like colonialism out of nowhere. And then out of
Right.
reading this, though, that's not true. He notes the entire time of like, here are these people that have no idea what the hell they're doing. And they get everywhere and act like they're in charge everywhere. And it actually screws them over every single time they do it. And then they get back to England, face no repercussions for doing it. And we have another 300 years of colonialism. Like, this is a perpetuating thing because we just pretend we have no responsibility as this in England, in Spain, but now as America as a hegemon. Like, that's his point.
I 100% agree. I thought this had like undertones. I don't think necessarily the writer David Grann was writing this being like, I want people to leave this thinking about the empirical hubris of today.
Yeah.
But he was like, I think he had it sprinkled in there and let it, let it
subtly
marinate
was.
with you.
Yeah.
But
Right.
and I don't think that if you didn't take that away at all from this book, you could definitely still very much enjoy it just because it was a really cool story. Like Phil said, it's a story that we never learn about in any kind of schooling, probably public or private school. It is what you said, Phoebe, pretty insignificant event overall in history, but he wrote it in a way that made it exciting the whole time. It had the idea, it started off with this idea of treasure. Like they were legal pirates. What is cooler than that? Not like
Nothing. Dragons.
Dragons.
I think
This is like a boy book. I hate to say it. It's like Isaac
well, about
thinking
damn
that,
time.
Yeah.
I
About damn
think-
time.
I think-
Every book for the last book. I can't even.
I think that this book is definitely probably those who talk a lot and think a lot about the Roman Empire would love this book. I think that I think that it's it's very interesting, but I actually, now that we're saying it about sort of the irrelevance of it, I think one thing that he does masterfully, and I'm sorry if this gets too into the writing, Phoebe, is...
No, let's get into it. I think
Yeah.
it's all intertwined.
So what annoyed me about Dead Wake was all the, and Fireweather was all the irrelevant details.
Right.
I think his details were both relevant, but also painted a picture for you. I want to read one passage that I just like, it seems irrelevant, but then you get an idea of what life is like in England at this time, where press gangs headed out in boats as well, scouring the horizon for incoming merchant ships. Often men's were returning from distant voyages and hadn't seen their families for years. And this is when they come back and seize these people because they need to then conscript them. And then he paints the picture of them taking people from hospital beds and carrying them onto the boat because they're so sick they couldn't walk and they just needed bodies.
Yeah.
And that was wild.
Yeah.
And then you get to the point where they're sailing around Drake and he's giving these numbers of deaths where he's like 25% of the crew is left. And you're like, that's entirely believable because they were all sick at
There's
the
all
start
this-
and they have
They're
no
not
idea
eating
what they're doing.
vegetables or
Like,
fruit.
Yeah. Like,
It-
and it made it all very relevant.
And Phil, I
Yeah.
think what I loved about his, and I didn't notice this while I was reading it, but as I was going back through for my notes, he didn't feel like he had to quote. I'm not going to say he took a literary license, but he didn't feel like he had to write with the minutia of everybody's. He just read this somewhere, and he has the last eighth of the book is just all his sources.
Him talking,
but he doesn't
yeah.
have to. He doesn't quote everything and say, "Oh," and then Johnny Englishman
John
says
Bulkley.
this to describe the taking of the sick people. He just says, and then the pressers went and found sick people because they couldn't press these people into the gangs, and just explains it. And that's why it becomes more of a story and not this textbook.
Fact.
Yes.
Being shoved down your throat.
Yes.
Yeah. I was wondering, speaking of that, where Cheap's account came from. He was keeping a log as well? I guess I kind of missed that.
Yeah, he was keeping a diary as well.
Because that was the only thing that didn't quite add up to me.
I just don't think it was as detailed as Buckley's.
Yeah,
like, I
and
felt
it got
like when
shredded.
you were saying,
remember, there was that whole thing where he found Buckley found shredded logbooks, but they all wrote accounts when they got back for their defense, because they had to defend themselves at their court martial.
I mean, all of this a little bit the whole time. I was like, none of this is true. Like, savagery happened out there.
Yeah. And I think it could. It could be way worse because how it ends. It, like you said, Phoebe, everything is swept under the rug, and I think that plays right back into what Phil said about, and I said, like, empirical hubris. You're gonna do what you can to preserve and continue on the empire.
Yeah.
I think one thing that I just want to push back a little bit on Isaac, because I agree so hard that I disagree. That sounds silly. But I agree the writing was, like, so good that I think if you look back at the writing, and I'm going to read another section here, but he actually weaves in the quotes so that it's like someone talking. Like, it's like a character dialogue in fiction.
It's a story.
Where it's not like him. So he's like, to give a picture of these people dying, he's like, nevertheless, they were dying. Among the casualties was the 16-year-old boy named George Bateman. This poor creature starved, perished, and died a skeleton, Bulkley wrote, adding, there are several more in this. And it's just like, wow, that flowed seamlessly. Like, that is what I would have said, but Bulkley wrote it. Like, that's really well done. Very good
quotes, you guys, about the writing. I think you're spot on. I have nothing. The only thing I had, actually, I really liked, literally the only thing I took away from this book. During the age of sail, when wind-powered vessels were the only bridge across the vast oceans, nautical language was so pervasive that it was adopted by those on terra firma. To toe the line derives when boys on a ship were forced to stand still for inspection with their toes on the deck seam. To pipe down was the boat's swan's whistle for everyone to be quiet at night. And piping hot was his call for meals. A scuttlebutt was a water cask around which the seamen gossiped while waiting for their rotations. A ship was 3 sheets to the wind when the lines to the sails broke and vessels pitched drunkenly out of control. To turn a blind eye became a popular expression after Vice Admiral Nelson deliberately placed his telescope against his blind eye to ignore his superior's signal flag to retreat. I loved those. We use all of those sayings today.
It's just super relevant, like all of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that was relevant. I don't know that it was super relevant.
Those were cool. Another one that is a little bit later is Under the Weather.
I think Phoebe's making the argument that just, like, history is unimportant unless it literally impacts me right now.
Or the United States. As Neil said, this is a very American Central view. Because, maybe in English schools they teach the wager crashing. Who knows? It's a moral dilemma over there.
You think the British Empire admits a failing of the Jenkins Ear War?
Wait, Isaac, what did you say?
No, I said another one of those that they mentioned a little later on is Under the Weather, when you got sick.
Yeah. But it was bad because you're under the weather.
Well, you went, like, down below to get out of the weather, so you were under
the weather.
Yeah. I just tried to find it, but I couldn't find the.
Yeah. No, that's another good one. Those were all good.
I will do a little critiquing. I enjoyed the writing, like I said. I thought he did a great job mostly with the suspense. I thought at times there was some, I'll say, unique emphasis on events. Like, things are kind of building up, and then he'll just be like, and then it happened. Like, they build the suspense going around Cape Horn. You just get all this description about everything, and then he says, and then they crashed and you're like, wait, what? Like, there was
the wager just broke away.
There was another with the sickness as well, like this buildup of like, oh, what is going on with them? And like they had scurvy, and it's because they hadn't eaten vegetables.
Didn't eat
you're
oranges.
Like, okay,
Yeah.
that was abrupt, but I guess we'll keep moving. But overall, it didn't take away from it, but I have 6 examples of just being like, oh, okay, we're moving on, I guess.
Yeah.
I
That's
do
a lot.
think that perhaps to say that in a different way, because I didn't actually have too much of a problem with that, but what I had a problem with, and it might be related, is that at times it did just seem like a montage of, but like everything bad did happen to them. Like,
everything.
It wasn't like it was just
was
like
horrible.
It was
Yeah.
awful, and they kept leaving and coming back with less people, and it was just like, guys, what is happening here? And it was
It's,
just
like, not
Bulkley. The okay, so I think the Bulkley description was really good, and the way that he did it in sort of like giving the reader some attention to like how good this guy was really, really well done. But when they are 10 days in and they're like, I think we're not in Drake's Passage, and then they turn around and then they're like, we were there, and then they turn around
No,
again.
not Drake's Passages on the outside, the Magellan.
Or not Drake's. The Magellan Strait.
Magellan
Strait.
Strait.
Or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah. But then what's crazy about that is even with all that dumbassery and not on a boat, like a real boat, Bulkley got them through in a third of the time that it took Magellan to get through on his like amazing voyage. And that's is like
crazy.
navigation skill. And so you get
Yeah.
where when Bulkley then, his biggest threat to them was Wild. He's like, I'm going to go ashore. That's his biggest
I'm
threat. And
gonna
they're all like,
leave
okay,
you.
we'll listen to you, dude.
That was a flex. Yeah.
Wild.
I mean, obviously you guys had a different takeaway. I think my takeaway, I think you're the hubris. What was it, Isaac?
Empirical hubris.
Yeah, the empirical hubris. I think that was a very good takeaway. That's probably what I would call what I was trying to say. I was trying to say this concept of like loyalty versus autonomy in a crisis, but I think that's weak. I don't know.
I mean, I think that if that's what you took away, I think that that's one of them too. It's this struggle of just, okay, we know this guy's in charge, and he is not going to get the solution. And, like, the more that we push for our solution, the more he's not going to do his. And I think that there were 2 ways that, like, you could either be king and just didn't do what anyone said, and he was like, I'm going to drink and booze and do my own thing. Or you can be Bulkley and try to get out of there. Or you can be Byron and take your risks.
I think it's worth saying, though, that like, remember when Cheap took over and he had like 37 charges or whatever that he had to read out to the deck to say, now I'm the captain, mutiny is, the Articles of War. I think as a sailor, you're taking that very seriously. And for them to mutiny is a really, like, I don't think the emphasis, I mean, I do think that Grann did put emphasis on that throughout the book, but I think there's a huge emphasis on that we're not really considering, or I feel like you're not considering, maybe Phil, but maybe you are. Like,
I see it as a soft mutiny, though. Like,
yeah, that's it.
Because they didn't kill him. They said,
they left him
we are doing this. You can come along. They invited him along. He said, no, we're going to go. He wanted to put the boats back together, sail to the rendezvous point to meet up with Anson, and then continue to hunt the galleon.
Yeah,
I would be like, we're going home. I thought it was crazy.
We're out.
That they still were so confident in their ability to survive this that they were worried about the repercussions when they got back to England.
Oh, right. Yeah.
I would be like,
everything.
if I survive
we're
this,
never gonna make
this
it.
is going, like, I will do whatever you want.
A hero.
Like, I'm going to be welcomed back with a rose or ticker tape parade and all this stuff. Like, I would not be being like, oh, they could actually put me in jail because I disobeyed my captain.
That's true. They were taking it seriously. They were taking it very seriously, what they did.
And I mean, I took it seriously as well. Like, I think he says, like, that. That's what I think what Grann does pretty well is as well, where he says that they're recording all this stuff, whereas Isaac and I were both like, what the, like, why are you recording this?
Guys,
Who
we're
cares?
alive.
Just
Like,
live.
this is
Mutiny
wild.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
think
even
that-
just people sailing without GPS and sonar, like sailing the open ocean, insane.
But
Like,
remember,
I would never
they were
expect to
all
live.
completely incompetent as well. Like what we got from the beginning. They had no
Yeah.
idea what they were doing. They all got conscripted
Right.
into the Navy. They had no
True.
idea how to survive. None
Yeah.
of them knew how to swim. That's what we learned at the end. None of them, they were all like, we should go ashore. And then they're like, actually, none of us can get there. It was like, what? And you see that too when the native people visit them. The native people just go out and fish. And they're like, oh
Whoa.
my God, we haven't eaten in the
Yeah.
past 3 weeks. This is awesome. And it's
Yeah.
like, how...
Yeah.
I mean, yes, it was probably harder to live than I'm giving them credit for. But also, like, they were
That's all
on
you're doing
Patagonia.
full-time.
Like, there's
Yeah.
creatures and food and stuff. Yeah, I don't know.
But that goes, I think it lends to Cheap. I'm speaking out of both. I'm like all over the place right now, but I am speaking out of both sides of my mouth because that's definitely lending to Cheap, who was supposed to be their leader.
Yeah.
If Cheap had said from the start,
Yes.
hey, we're on land now, we need to, we are going to have, like, kind of Lord of the Flies,
Right.
which is my book recommendation. Like, someone needs to be a hunter, someone needs to make the shelters. Like, if there's a very clear order here. But that never
only
happened.
order Cheap had was, I'm in charge. And
Yeah.
that was his order. He had no idea. He was just like, if I didn't come up with the idea, we're not doing it. And
Yeah.
like there was, just absolutely wild.
Yeah. Summarize maybe in a sentence for me the takeaway for you guys from this.
Yeah, I think my
If we haven't already
takeaway-
said it.
My takeaway was, as Isaac's, it was that this is, I think it sort of centers on what we've been talking about this entire time. Like, this is an incompetent group of people that are coming to places they have no idea what they're doing with, pretending they're in charge, and then asserting their dominance with violence. And that, I think, is like this perpetual system that we were stuck in. And like I think that he's basically like, this is almost laughable based of what we've said. Like, these people have no idea what they're doing, and it is very harmful to the world as a whole to keep doing this.
Yeah,
I
that was
think,
like way more than one sentence, but
I've got a quote.
Very good,
I've got a
Phil.
quote to summarize what I think that summarizes that pretty well. But it is precisely such unthinking complicity that allows empires to endure. Indeed, these imperial structures require it. Thousands and thousands of ordinary people, innocent or not, serving and even sacrificing themselves for a system many of them rarely question.
yeah, that's a great quote.
So you could
Cool.
take that away. I think my takeaway, this is also just, like we said, to start it out, just a really cool, entertaining story. And if you just took that away, you're going to like this book.
Yeah. I'm so happy you guys enjoyed it. The only thing I wanted to mention was the natives, and I think, Phil, you were getting, with your point, you were getting after that too, is just time and time again, native peoples showed European people and our ancestors so much kindness and compassion, and it took them in, and we just completely demolished them time and time again. I mean, even within this story, the men immediately began sexually harassing the native women, and the native peoples left because of that. I think, what works for some does not work for others. I gave this book a 2. It did not interest me. I really enjoyed talking about it with you guys, but that did not persuade me from feeling as if I wrote in my notes, this feels like exactly what you said, Phil. It's like a backyard story to tell someone, like, oh, did you ever hear about the wager? It's like a conversation starter at a dinner party, which I don't really need. I have other things to talk about. So it was a 2 for me. Phil?
Yeah, I think for me, I love the writing. I initially gave it a 4 when I read it, but I think he brought it back with all the anecdotes about the Empire. So for me, it was actually a 5-star.
Dang. Okay,
Nice.
Phil. Isaac, what about you?
I'm giving it a 4. Really enjoyed it. Will be a book I recommend to someone who is trying to ease into nonfiction.
Yeah, good. That's a great point. I would say that if you liked this book, you should read Lord of the Flies by William Golding. And then after you read that, you should come on and listen to the podcast where we discuss Lord of the Flies. So that is my recommendation to all who liked The Wager by David Grann. Phil, what about you?
Yeah, mine would actually be Corruptible, Who Gets Power and How It Changes Us by Brian Klaas. It actually opens with a shipwreck. And
The same shipwreck?
No, but it is
different
a different shipwreck, and it talks all sort of about this power structure and how people get corrupted, and if corruption is how it evolves and works. It's a really good book.
Isaac?
Mine is Hero of the Empire by Candace Millard, and I can't remember if I've recommended this before, but it's a nonfiction about a young Winston Churchill, and it's another one that reads like a story, so a very exciting, quick nonfiction read.
Oh, yeah, I think you have, actually. That sounds good. Great recommendations from both of you on those books. And before we go, as always, let's talk very briefly about what we will be reading next time, which is Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte. Isaac, could you tell us a little bit about that book?
Yes, Jane Eyre follows the orphan Jane's journey from a bleak childhood to a governess position at Thornfield Hall, where she falls in love with her enigmatic employer, Mr. Rochester, and navigates secrets in societal expectations.
Yes, very excited. This is a classic I have not read. So looking forward to discussing that with both of you. And this is your bi-weekly reminder to call someone that you love, tell them that you love them, tell them about a good book that you have read, visit your local library or use your Libby app, and until we talk again, stay classy, second pagers. We'll see you later.
Bye, guys.
Let's go
See you guys.
beyond the first page.